Today's episode is brought to you by Musical Theater Radio's merch store. Looking for that perfect gift for someone or just want to treat yourself to some great musical theater themed merch? Head to musicaltheaterradio.com and click on the All Things Theater button on the homepage and check out all the different designs available. And now, today's interview. Welcome back to another episode of Be Our Guest here on Musical Theater Radio. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. Kurt Weill may be one of the most underrated composers in musical theater. His songs are beautiful and difficult and sometimes slightly jarring to the ear, but in turn gives them that beautiful and compelling sound. Today's guest just released the album Pirate Jenny, a fresh electric reimagining of Kurt Weill's songs, whose critiques of societal injustices and corruption still ring true today. She's played Sally Bowles in Cabaret in Paris. In New York and London, played Velma Kelly from Chicago, as well as Marlene Dietrich in Rendezvous with Marlene. On June 13th, we'll be performing a tribute concert to Kurt Weill at Coelho Hall in London, UK. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the show, Ute Lemper. Hello, Ute. Hello and welcome.
Hello, Jean-Paul. Hello from New York to you, wherever you are and wherever this radio will go into the world. Hello to everyone. Bonjour à tout le monde.
Oh, thank you. All right. Before we get into the album and the concert, I always ask for a 30-second bio from my guests because we wanted to get to know who you are, who the artist is behind all the work. So my question is, 30 seconds, who are you?
It's been a long time, right? It's been a long journey for me. I would say I am a professional artist already for more than 40 years. That means starting in my early 20s in Berlin at the time, West Berlin, Cold War still. Was already in musical theater, had performed Cats and Peter Pan at the time, and looked around in that year, 1985, around, and saw this crazy, absurd, disturbing world, and the city that was separated by a wall in the middle and a wall all around us. And I was, as a young German artist, finding my expression, and I really was very interested. Inspired by this into the repertoire of Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht. As you said, musical theater, it's the first form of popular music or musical theater, as you want to say it like this, that was created in the 20s during Weimar. So they created not like opera or operetta before, but like a platform, theatrical, biting lyrics, biting words, conversations, dialogues, and music, all to speak directly to people without any kitsch, speak to them and make them go ahead and change their lives, and encourage them to, start a revolution, to take their lives in their own hands and, start to fight for their rights. And that was like an incredibly courageous political dimension, almost, I would say. And yes, I really liked that. When I was young, that was like a wake-up call to me. So I started recording this music, and I was asked by Decca Universal Records in London to be the protagonist of this re-recording series called Degenerate Music. That's the term the Nazis used to denounce the music of the Jewish composers in the 20s and Arte to Musik. And it was a great privilege to be that protagonist of many, 15 recordings, first LP, then CD. But it came with a great responsibility too. So I had a very early, very international career through this recording career, and I was put into the situation to have to speak to many journalists about being a German of this Cold War generation, and asking myself, the generation of my parents, asking everyone very uncomfortable questions about the German history, the past, the World War II, the Holocaust, and the Nazis going back into their jobs right after 1945. So these were complicated matters that were not very well received in Germany when I started speaking and asking, but in an international context, and these albums were released internationally and successful only internationally, not in Germany. It was an important mission At the same time, in those years, I already had a stage career. So besides the musical comedy, then there was the Sally Bowles in the Parisian production in Paris, 1987. And that's where my phone call with Marlene Dietrich happened at that time, as the first comparisons started to be written in Le Monde and Figaro, La Nouvelle Marlene, the new Marlene. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have to write her a letter. And so this is how that phone call happened. And 30 years later, I made a show. And then it went on and on, Broadway, Chicago and London, Chicago and Broadway, and my own music. Since 20 years, I write my own music and create my own projects, which really I feel most connected to. And it liberated me as an artist to just be um, my own boss, my own creator. That means creating, writing, music, stories, words, poetry, and creating a project out of just an inspiration. And here we are today with this very important Kurt Weill album. It is the 125th birthday of Kurt Weill this year. And after having sung his music for 40 years, I wanted to do this year something completely new, reimagined, contemporary, groovy, unexpected. And I wanted to bring this music to basically the younger generations.
And as you mentioned, you've been enamored with Kirk Weill for a while now, since your first album almost nearly 40 years ago was about Kirk Weill. What is it about his works that draws you to it, and how did you first discover him? And yeah, what drew you to his work?
Well, I told you it was in the year 1985. I was in Berlin and I was really waking up, and this repertoire was forgotten. Somehow, the Nazis had destroyed it all. After 1933, there was nothing left of this rich Weimar culture. These experimental composers like Weill, Eisler, Ullmann, and so many in that time. And yeah, and then there was like a cultural vacuum in Germany for these years. And we listened to pop music from England, imported from America, of course. And it took time the German language was stigmatized still in those years. It's terrible. It was ugly to speak German anywhere in the world. Yet it is a gorgeous and deep and beautiful language, a profound language. And this recording project really brought just this whole period back to life. It revived it. Many young artists suddenly started, with this repertoire of the Berlin Cabaret songs, which are political satire, and they stand for freedom of expression, freedom of sexuality, freedom of the women, emancipation, and all of this. And suddenly, by the middle of the 90s, when I did this album, worldwide, there were young artists, also young gay artists, who really embraced this repertoire to speak for free, stand up and speak in music for freedom of expression.
The first song on the album is Mac the Knife, and it's been one of the most popular, well-known show tunes out there. And it's weird to call it a show tune because it's so incredibly deep and rich. But what do you think it draws people to coming back to it over and over again?
Well, it has become a show tune, Mac the Knife, because the Americans have bastardized it basically with like their swingy, jazzy version of Mac the Knife. It was like a jazz standard. And it was, of course, wonderfully interpreted by Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. And so, I mean, but because the music is pleasant, the theme is pleasant, and it has this repetitive, nice swingy mood if you want to put it in that world. But originally in 1928, it's written as just a single guy in the street plays the org, the wheelie org, and just sings it out and talks about Mac Heath, who is the most outrageous criminal in the city, an underdog about to rebel against the establishment, overthrow the government. So it's a really the real text is completely scary, and it has been basically eliminated from that swing version, the real text. He doesn't want to speak about theft and murder and rape and corruption and such. It has been eliminated. So of course I've always stuck to the real version, but this time we're putting it into this kind of a polyphonic,
Mhm.
electronic, groovy world. And I really enjoyed this time with my co-producer David Chesky, who also really arranged this album. album, and to explore this like surround sound, crazy, immersive universe of sound where the voices, I recorded many voices. They come from right, they come from left. Then, of course, there's the center voice, but it's kind of almost a dialogue, and there is almost like a cinematic quality, visuality to it.
Yeah. Kurt Weill worked with so many different writers, and yet his sound is so distinct. When you hear a Kurt Weill song, it's a Kurt Weill song. Doesn't matter who the lyricist is. What, as a writer, what have you drawn from him? Because you said you write songs as well. Do you have a comparison for yourself, and what have you drawn from him?
Well, first of all, yes, he was an inspiration to many other also Broadway composers. Kander
Mhm.
and Ebb with Chicago and with Cabaret were completely inspired by the Three Penny Opera. Many other artists were inspired by this realism in his style, like Sting and Lou Reed. There was always this Berlin edge in it, I would say. Well, the songs are written also harmonically very complex, but on this album, I'm putting, because we're going to this polyphonic vibe, we're putting it into a universe where you don't have to change chords
Mhm.
with every line of text, but you can stay in the same harmonic universe and tell the story. I do find, though, that the German Weill, the Weimar Weill, was quite different from the later Weill, the American Weill. He left Germany in 1933 with Lotte Lenya. They fled from the Nazis and then was in Paris for 5 years, where the compositions were still very much reminding the German time, but yet searching for something else anew, adapting a little bit to the French chanson feeling. And then he was in America. And first of all, he was lost because they didn't like the European contemporary music there. But so what he had to do is basically listen to what was going on there. And what was going on was George Gershwin. And he had to kind of step in his footsteps to find that sensitivity. He certainly could do that as a composer. He had the craft and also the feeling for it. And Gershwin already had used elements of jazz, but then also the classical background. There was interesting harmonics, even inspired by what Stravinsky or Schoenberg. And then Weill could easily actually go on into this direction. He just went less experimental and more commercial than once he was in America. And he did very well writing, Broadway shows, Lady in the Dark with Ira Gershwin and September Song, Knickerbocker Holidays, such beautiful work, some more complicated works like Street Scene, one of his latest works. But he died already when he was 50 years old, 1950. Imagine. He only lived 50 years. And well, people say he died at the end of the day of a broken heart, because to be thrown out of your country, to be denying what you have ever created, which was so revolutionary, more revolutionary than ever, was the Berlin time, obviously. And then he never spoke his mother tongue again, not even with his wife Lotte. He just spoke English. And I would say at one point, of course, this circle of immigrants there in Los Angeles, New York, was vast and large, and they have inspired greatly the American culture. What would America be today if they didn't have the European contemporary Jews from the 1930s that came over and inspired that culture? It wouldn't be the Hollywood, it wouldn't be the Broadway, it would be a completely different culture, definitely less profound, I would say. And yeah, so it's a big story to be told, and I really find the most fascinating, really, to tell you the truth, is the collaboration with Bertolt Brecht. Those 4 or 5 years in Germany, in Berlin, were so revolutionary with Brecht as the poet, because the poetry of Brecht is so awesome, so unusual, so bright, so philosophical at the same time. The character he chooses are always outcasts, not like the American repertoire where, Venus is brought back to life, or Eliza Elliott is doing this and that. But here, these are outcasts, anti-heroes, whores, women who were, worthless, and then start their revolution to find their own voices. The same with depicting and analyzing the completely corrupt society that is obviously, based on making money and searching power. And this is so contemporary. Brecht knew it all, the incapacity of the human being to ever be nice and to share in a humane way. He knew it all. How then we are 100 years later, and welcome to Weimar.
Yeah, it's the huge what if, as you mentioned, he died at 50. If he had only, lived 20, 25, 30 more years, because what would he have written, and what would he have taken of society and implemented that? It's a
Well, he basically, I think he laid the grounds for Stephen Sondheim and other much more complex
for sure.
contemporary theater composers. And he would have probably really make another revolution in music once the Americans would have been ready for it. Yeah.
Agreed. Um, I'm curious. You seem to be drawn to songwriters and performers who are just a little bit off the mainstream. The Edith Piafs, the Jacques Brels, the Tom Waits. What is it about them that calls to you? The Kurt Weills, etc.
Well, these are all different universes, but I think having lived so many years in Paris at the time, it really did inspire me. And my God, there is nothing like the literature and music, like the French have cultivated it and preserved it as long as they could. And at one point they failed because the American music just invaded even that market that they were so proud of. And they wanted to preserve the tradition, but it was impossible after the year 2000, I think. But yes, I mean, there was nothing more gorgeous than to listen to Leo Ferré and Jacques Brel and Barbara. I saw her live on stage in 1987, and Claude Nougaro. It was, Serge Gainsbourg, who I also met at the time. This is so weird and so offbeat and like reminding me more of like a Tom Waits. These were all like kind of people that were lost. They were not heroes at all and not romantics at all. They were like people who were, left alone with, and then out of that created these jewels of poetry. It was very existentialist, the way the French just were with Sartre and Camus, and it really reflected in the world of chanson. And I really thought it was very special, and it always stayed with me. I always tried to keep close to the French language. And now next, very soon on the 20th of May, and I'm going to be in Montreal, and 22nd in Quebec to do my show Rendezvous with Marlene, which in French, first time in French, and I'm so happy to bring it to the Canadian audience, and I'm trying my best for the French. It's not so easy, but I'm preparing for my Parisian run, which will happen in December in the Théâtre de la Concorde in Paris. So this is a good preparation. In Canada, I can still slip a little bit into the English and, make a little ornament with German, but in Paris, I'm going to have to do it all the way through in French. Yeah.
I'd love to ask how you chose your songs, both for the album and then for the concert that's happening in June.
Yes, the Kurt Weill concert. Now, it's not reflecting exactly the album because it's impossible. The album is so produced, complex, with 6 or 10 or 12 of my own voices interacting with each other. I mean, I can't stand on stage with like a backup of singers, 12 of them. First of all, I have no budget for that. And it was just all me. It was so unorthodox. And I can't do it with an orchestra either, or with like 10 musicians. So I'm doing the absolute opposite. I'm stripping everything and I'm standing on stage with only a piano, and I'm going totally back to the roots, interpreting Kurt Weill in the purest, most humane way. And I do think in the act of performance, when you really bring in your soul and you just channel that person that you're incarnating at that moment, whether it's Jenny or Polly or the woman, singing Speak Low or September Song. It's just like such a humane moment to just be as pure and direct and transparent as possible, so the audience is just with you in this very moment of life, sharing this very moment of interpretation, which is, of course, always, in my case, I'm never relying on routine. I'm always interpreting everything different every time. Otherwise, it's so super boring, and I would not dare to do anything in front of an audience if I just like do it like a conveyor belt work and I'm just like, executing it. So it's always lived entirely 100%. I fall into the part, into the role, into the story, and I recreate it new. So that's the magic of stage. That's the magic of live performance. And so I'm stripping it down to the complete basics and performing German, French, and American material. Just me with my wonderful pianist Vanna Gehrig, and we just bring it close to the heart of everyone.
But there's nothing like just having a performer and a piano. It's real, it's raw, it's emotional. It like you said, it's stripped down, and what it
and you can't hide anything either, yeah. And it's not like sometimes I feel like classical recitals with opera singers. It's also very, very beautiful, but it's also very much artificially planned out, and the vocal performances they always seek perfection, but in my case, and in this case with this repertoire, you seek the opposite of perfection. You only seek authenticity. And that I just love that. The older I get, I feel so much more connected to this aspect that you just open a door, even if it's the one underneath you, and you just fall into this space where you just really can't fake it, and it's real. And that's why I still like, after all these years, to be on stage. And I possibly have to say, I love it much more now than I loved it 40 years ago.
I'd love to hear, in your opinion, what is the most underrated Kurt Weill song?
Oh, there's some unknown songs on this album that I interpreted, which I really like. Le Grand Luce du Cru, it's a French song he wrote during the exile from Marie Galante. And one song he wrote with Brecht, it's a radio cantata. It was almost never performed. At the time, it was already too dangerous politically, 1936, to perform this. It was about the assassination of Rosa Luxemburg. It's called The Ballad of the Drowned Girl, which is really, I think it's actually the best song on the album, because the others are all very known. So Raya Johnny and My Ship and so and so. But that one is just like, oh, it takes you by your throat, and it's so incredible. But I'm singing in German on the album. It doesn't exist in other languages. It was never translated. I also really like the song My Ship from Lady in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's this beautiful little children's song, actually, just like also pure and simple, but placed inside of gorgeous harmonies that just want to make you melt. And yes, I mean, it's also a song on the album. So otherwise, I mean, there's a lot of German songs that are so powerful. I just did, a couple of weeks ago, I worked in the production of The Seven Deadly Sins, which is a great piece by Kurt Weill and Brecht, their last collaboration in Paris in 1935, I think. And it's a great, great piece of symphonic, needs a large orchestra, but it was a ballet originally, directed by Balanchine, Georges Balanchine. Jean Cocteau made the stage design. Lotte Lenya played in it. It was in Paris, and I've played it many, many times. This time it was in the choreographed version of Pina Bausch. Pina Bausch is this German revolutionary choreographer from the last century. She passed away 15 years ago, but I had worked with her in 1990. So she was the one who actually originally taught me this ballet. And so we revived it now for the Weill's birthday here. It was a crazy thrill for me to go back into this production, and, just the space of time, 30 years is just so nothing. Everything was still original, completely original and truthful to the original choreography. And it was quite powerful, I have to say. And it was in Wuppertal, but we're going to bring it to London, to the Sadler's Wells, and also to Paris, to probably a Châtelet Theater. So that's also something wonderful that I find, forever. There's nothing like The Seven Deadly Sins. It's one of the most beautiful ballets and orchestral pieces and singing pieces, conceptual pieces for 40 minutes that he has written.
You've given us lots of things to go see now and discover. You've mentioned so many, different songs and shows that, we here in North America don't necessarily know any of this. We know the Mac the Knife, we know his big shows and the big songs, but you've given us a lot of rich information that now we can explore and learn more. So thank you for that, because I didn't even know some of this
So
stuff.
next week I am here in New York performing in the Neue Gallery, which is a beautiful museum. I do my Marlene evening, and at the end of the month, after Canada, come back to New York. I mean, I live here, so it's home game for me. I love it. And to the 54 Below, which is a super cool club Midtown off Broadway, and I will also perform again Kurt Weill here in New York City. And
There's
don't forget the 13th of June at the Cadogan Hall in London.
And I was just going to ask that. How do people get tickets and where do they go
Oh,
for
you
that
just
and for the album?
yeah, everything's online nowadays. Put in Cadogan Hall, see the program. Ute Lemper sings Kurt Weill, Neue Gallery. You can go to my website, utelemper.com. Everything's written there. All the links are there. And if they're not, you can just research it. And for Montreal and Quebec, I think it's all like spread online. Nothing is secretive. I'm not giving any secret concert except in your living room, right, Jean-Paul?
Exactly. Well, thank you. I'm enjoying it. Um, thank you so much for coming on today. It was a pleasure to meet you and learn all about you. And the album sounds incredible. It's so rich and different. I loved it. It was great. And we'll be adding some of the songs to the radio station's
Yeah, play
rotation.
Speak Low. Speak Low is the one that gives you the best
Yes.
entrance into this kind of like, harmonically different record. So Speak Low will get you a good door to get into this.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on and all the best. And yeah, it was
Okay,
a
thank
pleasure.
you, my dear. Take
No,
care and hello to everyone.
thank you.
Bye bye.
Oh,
Bye bye.
all right. So we were just speaking with Ute Lemper, who's got the album just dropped, Pirate Jenny. So check that out everywhere online, anywhere you buy music, as well as a concert in London on June 13th and in Montreal and Quebec. And everything she talked about, go check it out. If you are able to, go check it out. It would be fantastic. Tune in next week as we speak with another guest or guest about their life, love, and passion that is musical theater. I am your host, as always, Jean-Paul Jovanoff. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.